Friends, imagine this: Viktor Orban, despite the barrage of criticism and outright disrespect from the famous president, continues to demonstrate his political skills. Under the incessant pressure from Brussels, caused by its desire for a peaceful settlement, Orban gave an interview that can be called a real political sensation. In it, he not only put his opponents in their place, but also thoroughly undermined the reputation of Ursula von der Leyen, who managed to spend almost 400 billion euros to support a well-known country without achieving tangible results. Get ready, friends. You will find an analysis of Orban's vivid statements and my thoughts on where Europe is heading. Let's not delay, let's start. Viktor Orban, inspired by the victory of Donald Trump in the US presidential election and his upcoming visit to the opening of the restored Notre Dame, decided that the time had come to implement his peacekeeping mission, especially against the background of Trump's statement about the need to end the conflict in Eastern Europe. The Hungarian Prime Minister sees this as a chance to go down in history not only as a supplier of Tokai wine, but also as a leader of the peace process. With this attitude, Orban energetically stated that Hungary was doing everything possible so that Europe, supposedly the main interested party in ending the conflict, would finally stop being a passive observer in the great game of world powers. However, in practice, Orban is again facing problems not only in Brussels but also inside the country. The media is actively spreading rumors about his upcoming visit to Moscow, which is perceived as an attempt to weaken his position in the EU, where his initiatives are already causing acute irritation. Brussels clearly cannot forgive Orban for his alternative view of the conflict, which stands in stark contrast to the aggressive rhetoric of the Baltic leaders. As long as they demand victory at all costs, Orban is calling for peace. Of course, such pacifism provokes criticism, including the sarcastic attacks of the president of a well-known country, who even suggested that Orban seek advice from Assad. But most likely, Orban will prefer to deal with more pressing issues, such as energy negotiations. And here, friends, the most intriguing thing begins. The agreement between Russia and a well-known country on gas transit expires at the end of 2024, and this country has already stated that no one intends to extend it. Viktor Orban, as you know, is not the kind of person who will sit idly by. According to insider information, the Hungarian Prime Minister is actively engaged in negotiations on the renewal of the contract. Moreover, Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico is already flying to Moscow to personally discuss the details with Vladimir Putin. Apparently, agreements can be reached. I wonder how this will be perceived in Brussels. Most likely, there is no way. They have long been accustomed to Orban playing by his own rules. Friends, the moment with Ursula von der Leyen will be a little later, but for now we will analyze the opinions of experts. Experts are divided on this issue. German political scientist Klaus Dietrich believes that Orban's actions are quite logical. Hungary, which is dependent on Russian gas, seeks not only to secure itself energetically, but also to strengthen its role in the international arena. He noted that maintaining stable relations with Moscow remains key for Budapest, without which the country may face serious economic problems. However, French analyst Marianne Lefebvre is more skeptical. She is sure that Orban, by positioning himself as a peacemaker, is simply strengthening his internal support, because in Europe he will not be allowed to implement these initiatives anyway. According to her, the Brussels elites do not take Budapest seriously because of its frequent conflicts with the European Union. Nevertheless, Orban is not giving up. Despite the criticism, he continues to insist on resuming dialogue with Moscow. This, according to Italian political scientist Paolo Roman, can play a positive role in easing tensions. Romana noted that even if Orban's proposals do not bring instant results, they may be the beginning of a revision of the European strategy, because the conflict cannot be ended without taking into account the interests of all parties, including Russia. Orban has to endure not only attacks from the president of a well-known country, but also a cold reception from European colleagues who do not like his activism. Brussels would prefer Hungary to remain silent and follow the common line of the European Union. But Orban is coming up with his initiatives again, standing out against the background of the standard rhetoric of sanctions and military aid. His actions provoke contradictory reactions, but one thing cannot be doubted. He continues to go his own way, trying to ensure both peace and energy resources for Europe. It is especially important to note that Brussels is doing everything to complicate any contacts with Moscow. And yet, despite all this noise, Viktor Orban has a real chance to succeed. Donald Trump, known for his bluntness, has already declared his readiness to reconsider the U.S. approach to the conflict. If the White House does change its strategy, Hungary may find itself in an advantageous position by offering itself as an intermediary. Moreover, successful gas negotiations can significantly strengthen Orban's position both domestically and internationally. When asked about the Christmas truce, Orban called for maintaining strategic calm and magnanimously accepting harsh statements from the leader of a well-known country whose situation is really difficult. A significant part of the territory has been lost, millions of people have fled their homes, and infrastructure has been destroyed. Orban stressed that the situation requires a delicate approach and patience. He spoke about his initiative to establish a Christmas truce, based on successful examples of mediation by Turkey, which implemented the grain deal. Even during the First World War, the parties found an opportunity to cease fire on Christmas Day, Orban said. His proposal includes a ceasefire for several days during the Orthodox Christmas period, which would allow the exchange of several thousand people and the return of the men to their families. Despite the skepticism of some leaders, he believes that such steps can be the beginning for longer-term negotiations. The Russian president, according to Orban, expressed readiness to consider this proposal, whereas a well-known country reacts impulsively. However, Orban is confident that their position may change. He also stressed that the president of a well-known country recognized that the key to peace lies partly in the hands of Donald Trump. This confirms that the change of power in Washington, as well as changes in the situation on Earth, can open up new prospects for peace negotiations. According to Orban, the new American president is capable of playing a key role in the peace process. However, there is still time before his inauguration, and much will depend on how Europe perceives the changes taking place. Against the background of statements about the support of a well-known country, to the bitter end, more and more leaders are beginning to think about the need for peace. Orban believes that changes in the United States and the strengthening of Russia's position can contribute to a more reasonable approach to resolving the conflict and bring the crisis to an end. However, Brussels is not yet ready to adapt its policy. European institutions continue to declare their commitment to the previous course, despite its obvious inefficiency. At the same time, national leaders are beginning to realize the need for change. Society is tired of constant conflict, sanctions, and inflation. People are waiting for the economic recovery and the solution of internal problems. Ursula von der Leyen recently stated that Europe has spent more than 350 billion euros to help the famous country. These funds could be used to develop infrastructure, improve the quality of life, or solve migration problems. Instead, the money goes to finance the conflict, which negatively affects the economy of the European Union itself. Patriotic countries, including Hungary, oppose such a policy by Brussels. However, global liberal networks, according to Orban, continue to put pressure on European institutions. The struggle to regain control of Brussels is becoming a key issue for Europe's future. Meanwhile, a scandal is breaking out in Brussels related to the activities of the Hungarian Special Services. Journalists claim that from 2010 to 2017, Hungary actively monitored EU delegations arriving in the country. According to an investigation by a Hungarian portal and one of the Belgian publications, the methods of the special services included hacking laptops, listening to telephone conversations, and searching hotel rooms. The purpose of such actions, according to Western media, was to prevent the disclosure of corruption schemes related to Hungarian companies and the ruling elite. These accusations sound loud, but it is extremely convenient for Brussels right now, when Viktor Orban threatens to veto the next 7-year EU budget. Tens of billions of euros are at stake, which are at risk of being blocked. Orban's threat is quite real. The Hungarian Prime Minister is known for his perseverance and willingness to achieve his goals. If his demands are not met, he is capable of paralyzing the work of European institutions, as has happened before. Budapest's main requirement is to unlock the frozen 20 billion euros, which are vital for the development of the Hungarian economy. If we don't get this money, the EU simply won't have a budget, Orban said. He makes it clear that he does not intend to compromise. The espionage scandal only increases the tension between Orban and Ursula von der Leyen. Their personal animosity has long ceased to be a secret. This conflict is a reflection of deeper differences between Hungary and Brussels, where Hungary is increasingly becoming a symbol of resistance to the dominant line of the European Union. At official meetings, Viktor Orban and Ursula von der Leyen exchange smiles on duty, but behind closed doors their political struggle continues. Orban openly accuses the president of the European Commission of seeking to change his government, while she criticizes him for violating the principles of the rule of law. Another acute episode of their confrontation was Orban's trip to Moscow with a peacekeeping mission. Brussels' reaction was expected. The Hungarian leader was accused of betraying European values. However, Orban has long learned how to use criticism to his advantage. While Brussels is trying to find ways to pacify him, he is actively looking for new allies. One of these allies was Donald Trump, with whom Orban had a warm relationship. The Hungarian Prime Minister hopes that the future U.S. president will help form a conservative alliance capable of resisting the Brussels bureaucracy. And not only Trump, Elon Musk has already publicly expressed support for right-wing forces in Europe, and Nigel Farage regularly visits the residence of the Hungarian leader. Such an alliance could dramatically change the political landscape both in Europe and beyond. Experts note that Orban's strategy may be successful. Hungary has long established itself as a difficult partner for the EU. The country's leader regularly baffles Brussels, whether it's discussing sanctions against Russia or financial assistance to other countries. Orban, for example, became the only EU leader to veto the allocation of 50 billion euros to one of the conflicting parties. This step provoked sharp criticism, but demonstrated that the Hungarian Prime Minister is ready to go all the way. Orban's tactics are based on the principle of the best defense is an attack. His statements that the EU will have to agree to his terms sooner or later sound like a challenge to the entire system. The support of figures like Trump and Musk allows Orban to show courage that is not available to other leaders. Orban's political prowess is evident in his ability to exploit instability in Europe. The economic crisis and geopolitical tensions increase the weight of his demands. And the espionage scandal that the Western media is now trying to fan only confirms his reputation as a politician who is alien to obedience. According to journalists, Hungarian intelligence agencies used Israeli software to spy on journalists and opposition politicians. Despite the high-profile accusations, Orban dismissed them as fake news and remained true to his strategy. Orban's battle with Brussels is far from over, but it is already clear that the Hungarian Prime Minister is difficult to intimidate or force concessions. His determination, backed by the support of conservative leaders, makes him a serious player on the European stage. Perhaps it will be Orban who will challenge the dominance of the Brussels bureaucracy. History shows that real change always begins with those who decide to stand up to the system. And now I would like to express my opinion, friends. I sincerely admire the persistence of Viktor Orban, who shows firmness in defending the interests of his country. He is not afraid to go against the flow, even when it involves the risk of damaging relations with influential international institutions. Such firmness of character and consistency in actions make him an outstanding leader who knows how to hold a punch and does not deviate from the chosen path. I am particularly impressed by Orban's openness in his politics. He does not hide his goals and is ready to openly declare his conditions and positions. This quality, in my opinion, is important for any leader who strives not just for popularity, but for real changes in his country. Orban demonstrates that politics can be straightforward and honest, even in difficult conditions of international pressure. Yes, Orban may have his own goals, which do not always coincide with the interests of other players on the world stage. But I think he is definitely a worthy leader of his country. His ability to use criticism to his advantage, build alliances, and achieve his goals is impressive and inspiring. This is a leader who really works for his country and not just follows orders from the outside. Thank you for your attention. Friends, I wish you good health. Take care of yourself. See you later.